You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Welcome to this special edition of Teach Better Talk. I'm your temporary host, Tim Cavey from the Teachers on Fire podcast, and I've been given the great privilege of speaking with the hosts of Teach Better Talk, Jeff Gargas and Ray Hewitt. Congratulations, guys. Creating a 100th edition of just about anything is a significant milestone. And in the podcasting world, it is huge. It means you're a thing. You've worked hard to deliver great content consistently over time, and you have an audience who actually appreciates your message. So first of all, how does it feel to get here? Jeff, why don't you start?
Well, thanks for the kind words, and it's crazy. It's really cool to think we're about a year, not quite a year from when we actually launched it. So getting to 100 right now is pretty awesome. You know, when we started it was sort of, we had thought about this idea. I had a podcast in a former life, so Chad and I knew there was going to be a podcast there, but we had always put it off to the side. And then Ray came in and just messed everything up and said, "Hey, we're doing this thing." And we figured out, it was really, it was a way for us to help raise the voices of other educators and talk about them. But we honestly, I don't, we weren't really sure what it was going to do, how it was going to last, whether it was going to be worth all the extra work or whatever. But at this point, I don't know if I'd be happy not doing it at this point, I think, Ray.
I just want to make sure all of our listeners heard you say that I messed everything up. I just want to make sure we're about 2 minutes into this podcast and already you shooting me down, people. I just want to make sure y'all heard it.
I meant it in the best way possible, Ray.
The best way possible. I can't believe we're on episode 100. I think Tim Cavey sounds pretty good. I think he's going to stick and be my host, my co-host.
Well, hey, something that makes this show work is the Jeff and Ray banter. So I think you guys need to keep it going in this one. Ray, back to you. What are some of your favorite things about producing the podcast?
I think this podcast has been unbelievable. I cannot believe that all of our listeners have stuck with us and that Jeff has stuck around as well. But I've loved it. The people that we've connected with over 100 episodes just floors me. I cannot believe the amazing networking and stories. And I've loved doing this podcast. It shocks me that we're at 100 episodes. So I think doing something a little special and being able to have a conversation between the three of us is just a really cool way to celebrate this journey, because it's been exactly a year and we're doing our 100th episode recording right now.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Jeff, what about you? What are some of your favorite things that you appreciate about the pod?
I'm gonna echo, Ray's. The relationship we're building is really, really cool. I mean, Ray says it actually all the time that some of the best professional development she gets is from this podcast, and that's absolutely the same for me. I mean, what we learned, we did an episode last night that I learned so much on. It was just crazy. I wanted to just keep it going, and that happens all the time. I mean, we're building awesome relationships. We're connecting with people who are doing some really unique and fun things, and we get to learn literally every time we do an episode. I mean, it's just a really cool thing.
It keeps your mind in a great growth mindset place, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I know we've talked about this a ton, but as people pick their mediums, their platforms to get their professional development, I love going to conferences. I love Twitter chats, but podcasts just have a very special place in my heart. I love that I can turn them on when I'm in the car or getting ready in the morning. And it seems silly, but with all the podcasts that I listen to or the people's stories that we're able to share on Teach Better Talk, I mean, I'm learning so much, and you're building relationships with people around the world. It's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Guys, let's get into the analytics a little bit. After the United States, we'll assume the United States is home to most of your listeners. Which countries rank next as far as the most listeners? Who else is tuning in around the world?
So the United States definitely has the most. That's about like 93% of our
Okay.
listeners. Australia actually comes in second
Yes, Australia.
with a massive 2%. So thank you to Australia, whoever's listening. And then up there in Canada, we got 1%, and then pretty much everything from there goes, is marked with that less than 1%. So I mean, obviously, definitely in the United States, primarily that's where we're at. That's where we connect. But I love the fact that we do have other countries listen. I'd really like to get some of those percentages up higher. It'd be awesome to have, much more than that listening in Canada, but we're working on it,
Hey, Jeff, do you think we could do like a Teach Better Talk tour in Australia? That might be a cool trip to do.
That might be something we need to do. Like we'll do Australia, and maybe we'll go hit the UK, and we'll go, we'll come back to Canada. Sounds great, Ray.
Well, at some point, you guys will need to establish Teach Better Australia, right? You'll need a center there. So I think that calls for a summer with your families there, maybe. But shout out to the international listeners of Teach Better. Awesome to have you on board. Let's talk about you guys for a moment as a podcast listener. What's your typical setup, Ray?
You mean this by like, what does it look like when we're recording, or what podcast am I listening to right now?
I was actually thinking, when you are going through your week, are you listening to, I think you said something about getting into your car. So maybe that's the place where you listen the most. Are there other places and times that you listen to podcasts?
Absolutely. So every single morning when I get dressed, I throw on a podcast. I have a ton that I'm listening to. And so the morning kind of routine is filled with podcasts. And then every time I'm in the car, I do love music every so often, but catching up on my favorite podcast is a great spot for me. So I'd say that was probably my typical setup.
Jeff, how about you? What does that look like?
Definitely listen in the car. My go-to, I'm on an iPhone. I keep it really simple and use Apple Podcasts. And I do a lot of listening in my car. I'll do, depending on how I'm feeling when I'm going for a run. There's some days where I feel like my run just needs a podcast instead of music, and I'll just listen to a podcast. A lot of times when I'm working out, I will also just have something in my ears too. I love that I can just throw in my ears at any point. So, I like to keep them downloaded on my phone so that I can access them even if I'm not connected to a strong Wi-Fi signal and stuff like that. But definitely in the car, working out, running. And then a lot of times when I'm just working in general, I'll have them playing as well. So.
Oh my gosh, Jeff, I didn't even mention one of my favorite things. I'm sure you found this, but when I'm traveling to go speak at a conference or work with a district, podcasts are the best things during like the flights, like on an airplane.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great way to use that time. Guys, let's talk about the way to 100. So looking back on the journey to get here, what was your most stressful moment? Was there a time when, I don't know, miscommunication, logistical challenges, or some other circumstance almost killed an interview or lost a recording? Jeff, let's start with you. I know you're kind of the logistical master of this outfit.
We could write a book on this.
We may or may not be. So yeah, there has been exactly that. So it's kind of because with we're on the road a lot. So we've run into like your typical like bad hotel Wi-Fi.
Right.
So that's affected some things. We do our best when we to judge and try and move if one of us is going to be on the road during the nights, that we're recording, but we do schedule out pretty far. So sometimes we don't know that we're going to be on the road. So we've had that. We've had our share of your typical headaches of any podcast or some of the booking issues, but we've got a nice system in place now that has really limited that down. But we did have one episode where I literally just completely lost the entire file for our guest audio.
Oh no.
I still have no idea where it went or how it was lost. And we had to re-record it. It was horrible because it took us forever then to get a time to get him back on the show. We have redone the episode. It's coming out soon. It was fantastic. He actually, luckily, is awesome and saw it as an opportunity for him to just be better at answering what he said. So that was definitely a frustrating one. Outside of that, when we first launched, Tim, this. When a lot of people don't realize that Apple Podcast doesn't host your podcast, you send it there via an RSS feed, right? So it takes a little bit for it to get approved. And the crazy thing is if Apple denies your RSS feed, they don't tell you why.
Right.
You just sort of have to investigate all the potential reasons and then dig into your files and see what mistake you made. Well, we had everything done. We had recorded, what was it, Ray? I think 8 or 9 episodes so that we were launching with a bunch of episodes ready to go. We were launching with three all at once. We had promoted it. We were going live on on social media and talking about it and sending out emails and all this stuff. And it's 3 days before we're supposed to launch everything, and I realize that we're still not accepted onto Apple Podcasts, and then I get the rejection letter saying that it wasn't accepted. No. And I have no idea what it was. So we actually launched the podcast, and it was another 2 weeks before it was actually on Apple Podcasts. So we had to do a whole bunch of like, coming soon on Apple Podcasts, but it's on everything else. And people asking us, well, hey, are you guys on Apple Podcasts? Well, not yet, but we'll be there soon. And that was like just super frustrated and stressful for me. But we're there now, and it works it out. You live, you learn, you move on, and it's been a fun up and down.
Do you remember the exact? Sorry, Ray. Do you remember what the exact specific reason was there with Apple Podcasts? I'm just wondering for the teachers out there, and we know a lot of educators are launching their own podcast this fall. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, so I did something when I tagged the file, and I can't remember what it was that I tagged. Oh, you know what it was? My artwork file was like 5 pixels off.
Oh no!
No joke. So they're very specific on what they're if you're tagging your actual files before you upload them, then they have to be a specific size. And I'm tallying up to honestly like a typo when I set up the file size and we created it, and it was the wrong one, so they denied it. I fixed that, put it back in, and then we were approved. So really, and like that's probably the most frustrating part. It was such a little silly mistake on my part, but
oh my gosh, I think that the ones you just listed just brought back all the anxiety from but that wasn't even the one that I was going to mention. I'm so surprised that you didn't mention early on with, I'm just going to call her out, like Allison Epsy. I was such a fan of her. She comes on the podcast. I was so like fangirling out. If you listen to the episode, I try and hold it together. And our connection kept cutting out over and over, and I dropped out, and it was like one of the most embarrassing recordings. It wasn't even my fault. It was just, technology happens. But I'm like, oh my gosh, we got this wonderful, amazing author, and we are just a wreck. It was just so funny. But it ended up being a great recording. She was so fabulous to interview with.
When that happens, Ray, you listen to the recordings after the event, and you sort of hear your guest, heave this big sigh, or hopefully they don't use bad language, but it sort of takes you to their moment of frustration, and you just feel even worse. But yeah, thankfully these things have a way of sorting themselves out. And as listeners, we're completely oblivious. So thank you guys for going through those anxious moments and making it all happen. Guys, let's get introspective a little bit. How has this venture been personally rewarding? And what I have in mind here is, how do you think you've grown as a person and a professional? You've already talked about growing and learning from so many guests. How do you think you've grown as a person or as an individual through this process, right?
Yeah, I think, a ton. I wouldn't even know where to begin. I think the 2 pieces I've taken away so much is that the amazing educators that have joined us on the podcast have really challenged my thinking, which has helped me be a better teacher in my 6th grade classroom. But in the same sense, I think another huge piece of being a part of the podcast has been like kind of seeing the world outside of my bubble. I live in central Illinois. It's a relatively small town, and there's a lot of politics in every school district, and you just get really internal. You focus a lot on your classroom and students, and you kind of forget that the rest of the world exists. And so this is my amazing outlet for me to grow and kind of see the world from other perspectives and talk to educators that work in completely different teaching experiences than I do. And I think that I am able to give more to my students because I have these shared perspectives that I haven't actually lived, but I've been able to hear them through the amazing stories. And I've grown as an educator to see kind of outside that bubble, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally. Jeff, how about you?
One of I think the most rewarding thing personally, and this is going to come across kind of probably surprising to anyone who listens, is honestly the relationship that Ray and I have built through all of this. And she thinks I'm gonna come in bad here, but like it seriously is. So we had this. You talked about the Ray and Jeff banter at one point, right? We had a experience a couple months ago where we did a live interview at a conference, and then we're walking after the interview went great, and walking. It was Mike Muhammad, which is an awesome episode, by the way, and we're walking and we don't realize he's behind us, but we're just, being Jeff and Ray and picking at each other and goofing around. And he goes, so it's not just an act for the podcast. And we're like, what? We turn around and he's like, you guys are like this all the time. And we're like, oh yeah, this is just how we are. And like within a span of like a week there, Ray, you said something on an Instagram story about how we have like this brother-sister thing. I said it to someone else, not realizing it. And then Mike says it. And we're like, yeah, we really do have this sort of thing. But this has been an experience, when we did this. So when we first brought the idea of the podcast to the team, to Chad and to Tiff and Michelle and the team and stuff, like, we all have a lot on our plates, and we said, okay, yeah, this is a good idea, but it's probably not the right time because it's going to take so much work. And then Ray and I went back and neither one of us could shake it. And we're like, yeah, we need to do this. And so I made Ray a deal. I said, we can do this, but you and I are doing it. We're going to take on everything. It will not impact anyone else on the team in any way, shape, or form. And you and I have to commit to each other that we are never allowed to complain about the extra work. And she said yes. And that's how we got going. So like, it's been this, when it gets frustrating, if we're overworked with it and everything like that, we can only complain to each other, right? Because we're not going to bother. And Ray, I think we've done an awesome job not letting it hit anyone else on the team, even when it has been a lot of work. And we had one day where I think we did 6 recordings in one day. We've done stuff like that. And that was across like 3 weeks where we had like 4 or 5 this day, 3 this day, 6 day, and stuff like that. But this relationship that Ray and I have built, and we do a lot of other stuff, our business, we do a lot of things, and Ray and I do a lot of working together, on the marketing side of ththings and just the different things that were created and design stuff. And so having that relationship, I think has been really important. It's been good for our business, but also I consider us friends, and that's a lot to me. It means a lot to me. So that has been a big reward, I think, that this podcast has really done for us. So.
Jeff, we're best friends. Come on. Don't you dare short me of that.
That is super special, guys.
Yeah, it's been some really cool stuff. Absolutely. I appreciate that, Jeff. That was awesome.
It's the last time that happens, Tim.
It makes a lot of sense. And I can tell you as a listener, I don't know if there's anything like it out there in the Edu podcast world, that special vibe that you guys have and that banter and that dynamic. And even in the course of your interviews, the way you play off one another is really, really special. So hearing that history and that agreement, Jeff, makes a lot of sense. And I love hearing the backstory on how these things get started. You touched on relationships, and let's go there next. Podcasting does take time, energy, and resources, especially when interviews with guests are involved. So who would you like to personally credit for giving you the love, the patience, and the space to do everything you've done on the pod over the last year?
Oh, man. I feel like there's an endless list of people that I owe a thank you to. Jeff, are you feeling the same way?
Yes.
You're going to go first on this one.
I'm going first on this one. So, I mean, definitely my wife and my kids. My kids for, understanding that, I work from home a lot, so they understand when daddy's downstairs in his office, he's working, and it's tough for them. But then my wife for knowing and being awesome when we're doing podcasts to keep the kids at bay, essentially. And then I think, our team, I know I said that Ray and I work really hard not to let it affect anyone else, but our team has been, we came to them, we said, we're doing this. And they were like, yeah, you guys got to go rock and roll. And they love it. They spread it everywhere. And they've been really supportive of us continuing this thing because they see the benefit. They love it. And then, honestly, Ray, I know I was just nice to Ray. I'm being nice to Ray again, but just our ability to deal with the fact that we both know we're super busy, and then we're also doing this, and we're putting in time and energy and giving each other what we need to make this happen has been really cool too. So, well,
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Jeff. I mean, like anytime you're working with someone, which is always challenging, right? You're just learning to work with others. You need to find your jive, and you also need to kind of have the same understanding that you're just going to make it work, right? I just met with my co-teacher right before I hopped on this podcast, and we both carry this mentality of you just got to make it happen because you want it badly enough. And that's how I feel we both approach this podcast. We love being able to do it. We've gotten incredible feedback and are hopefully, amplifying teachers' stories, and we got to make it work no matter how busy we are or how late the recording goes. It's just what we want to do. So it's really cool to kind of see it all come together, and especially in episode 100.
Well, I want to say, guys, your positivity and energy is truly remarkable. I know I'm gushing a little bit here, but I can't think of too many shows where I hear the number of all out belly laughs and joking and just the humor that you guys bring into every interview. So Keep up the great work.
Well, we all know that I'm the funny one on the podcast and I do all the work. And Jeff just complains all the time and it's so tough. And
I just bring that perfect face for podcasting.
You
that's
do.
That's what I do.
Guys, looking forward, I've got a few questions here as we start to wrap up. You've been working together on a book project, and Jeff, you hinted at that earlier. It's set to launch this fall, so I'd like to hear a few things on that. What is it about? What's your driving purpose in writing it? And what does the cooperative writing process look like? Are you sort of dividing, like you take some chapters, I take these, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so I may or may not have hinted earlier at another book that's not really that's further down the road, but we do have a book coming out. Looking like it's coming out right around the time this podcast launches. Actually, we as of today when we're recording this, we don't have the exact date, but it's going to be in September. And the book's called Teach Better. It's coming out on the Dave Burgess Consultant label. We're super excited to be working with them, and the book is really a combination of a lot of the best practices and, tips, tricks, tools, whatever you want to call it, that we've seen done really well around the country when we're working with teachers and districts everywhere, and things that we've seen work, things that we train on that we've seen results from. And then a combination of that with our story, our individual stories that all led us to the Teach Better mindset and to the team. And then the story of sort of how the team has been woven into all that. And, the process was, it's done, it's in, we're waiting for the final, the format, and at this point, so it's all been done. The process was definitely daunting and stressful because you have 4 voices coming in, and so it's kind of like a singular voice with 4 voices scattered throughout, if that makes any sense. It took us a little bit to find our groove on how we were going to do that. We ended up sort of compiling individual thoughts into different documents and then combining them into one, and then piecing it together from there. So it was a crazy collaboration project, but we've been done with that part for a while, but now it's been a lot of the collaboration continues as we're looking at edited versions. Do we want, getting suggestions from the Burgess team on whether we should keep this part in or move this here, and we have to all 4 agree on things. We all have to think through it and stuff. So it's been fun. It's been an interesting ride with it. What do you think, Ray?
Yeah, I think the thing that makes it so different, and by the way, the coolest part so far is picking out the cover. That was totally something I was joking about. But I think the book is so odd. I hope that all of you enjoy it and pick up a copy, because it really does approach education with the tactical next steps that you can implement in your classroom tomorrow, which is what we wanted. As a team, we want to make sure we are supporting teachers, not just in their overarching philosophy, but on this pursuit of growth and actually being able to see the change as soon as possible. So whether it be trying to manage better or plan better or anything in between, we really tried to approach sections of the classroom and help educators really hone in on that and look at how to dissect it to do it even better than they're doing it now. But then throughout that, we have shared so many personal stories. It's almost funny, Jeff, when I read the kind of edits that we're looking at now, being like, wow, there's so many personal stories, personal anecdotes that we are able to share throughout our process of growing as individuals, as educators, that I hope people really appreciate and take in, because there's some really cool kind of explanations of our background kind of hidden within this book. And I think that'll be really great for our readers to explore.
Well, I can't wait to receive my copy. And thanks for taking us behind the scenes a little bit, guys, and telling us what that process looked like as a team. Teach Better is impacting so many teachers, thousands of educators now through this podcast. You've got Twitter chats, courses, in-person workshops, and now we talked about it, the first ever conference. So what do you most look forward to about the Teach Better conference, and what would make this first conference a home run in your view, Ray?
The conference was an idea similar to the podcast. We were like, what if we just tried this, right? And it kind of took off from there. I'm thrilled with so far our lineup of the conference. We're just continuously releasing our featured speakers, and we seem to have just a great network that all wants to come together and obviously share in education, but also network and get to know each other on a personal level. A lot of these people, Jeff, it seems like that are coming are like our virtual friends, that this will be kind of the first time meeting them face to face. And I think that experience is going to be unbelievable. My favorite part, maybe I'll start here. My favorite part of the conference is that we are specifically designing it to be different. This is not a conference that you're going to walk in, see a keynote, pop into a few sessions, and then kind of go hang out in your hotel room or explore, Akron. We're really trying to build this entire growth 2-day experience where we are going to take you on a journey through the sessions we have, set up, and we're ending it, not to give away kind of my favorite exciting ending keynote, but we're ending it with a call to action where we're going to really hold you accountable for those pieces. And I think that that's kind of the magic of the Teach Better team, is we're never a one and done kind of group. We love staying connected and making sure that whatever goals you have set for yourself, for your classroom, for your career, happen, and we can help in any way possible. So I hope that all of you listening are registered, because it's going to be an amazing event. But to make it a home run would be just to have everybody there with the mindset of being vulnerable, wanting to grow, and just take in all the energy.
So good. Jeff, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I echo everything there. My favorite parts, I think, is the fact that while we have a lot of our internet friends, come in, and we're gonna get to meet a lot of them in person for the first time. There's also a lot of new faces and new friends. So we had so many submissions for proposals for teachers coming to speak. We knew we'd get a few, but we got way more than we thought, and it was probably one of the hardest things I think we've ever done as a team.
Yeah,
writing the book was easy compared to trying to go through these sessions and pick, because we had a limited number that we could do, and we've actually adjusted rooms and adjusted the schedule so that we could fit more because there were so many. So I'm super excited about that. But I'm also really excited about the fact that we're keeping it, we kept it small by design. And it's in a smaller space, smaller now. Now, obviously there's a little bit of a business decision because it costs a little bit less and stuff too. But we love the idea of keeping it small because we wanted it to be intimate. But like Ray said, we didn't want it just to be just a typical thing. We wanted you to come in and actually create real, true relationships, and not just see people present and speak, but also hang out with them, spend time with them, talk with them, and grow these relationships. I'm excited about that. I think the home run piece, what would make it a success, is literally just people leaving with value. So, I mean, that's the goal. I mean, obviously not losing thousands of dollars would be a great, goal to hit as well. But the primary objective really is to give teachers and administrators tools, ideas, and then the inspiration that they need, that they can take that back and actually put it into action. Like Ray said, we're focusing on this accountability of the fact that it doesn't matter how good the sessions are or how many amazing speakers we have coming out. If you don't take what you learn at a conference and put it back, it was really just a waste of time and money for a fun weekend, right? So we're really focused on that piece. And that would be my biggest thing. I think 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 months after the conference, hearing about teachers who have taken something they learned there and put it into action, whether big, small, whatever, I think that'll be the really successful moment for me.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all about how is it affecting professional practice? How is it changing the game for learners? Ultimately is the goal, right?
Yes.
Back to the podcast, guys, for your very last question. As you look ahead to Teach Better Talk, heading toward 200 episodes, how would you like the podcast to grow or evolve or serve educators even better than you already have at 100 episodes? Maybe this is a tough question to ask, but dream some big dreams here. Where would you like to go from here?
Jeff, you and I have not discussed this. I don't know. Were we going to have different answers?
I don't know. That's a great question.
I just want to point out that all of our listeners right now are thinking, is Ray really going to put up with Jeff for 100 more episodes?
Well, Ray, and maybe this is a good time to ask, will you continue to introduce Jeff with a special word in every episode through this next 100?
Ooh.
I'm running out of positive words. I only have negative ones. No, I'm just kidding. No, I do like introducing him because that allows me the freedom. That first 30 seconds where it's only me, it's probably only 10 seconds. I have total freedom. I can do whatever I want. Right. You might hear a crazy episode going to happen soon. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how I want it to evolve. Besides that, I want to keep doing it. We've connected with amazing educators. We've had amazing people on the podcast. But there are hundreds of thousands of more teachers that I haven't had a conversation with. And so for me, it's just, who are the educators, whether you're listening right now or an educator that you're following on Instagram or Twitter that we haven't had? I'm desperate to have them on the podcast and talk through their story and amplify their story. So I say the more the merrier. I want to talk to more teachers.
Well, Ray, and that mission of amplification really comes through loud and clear. I remember one guest on your show that had essentially no social media presence at all, which really spoke to me, because it means that you two are not just recruiting the so-called rock stars of education. You're interested in, yes, the influencers, but also those who are just doing great work. And so keep amplifying those stories. Jeff, your thoughts on this?
I'm with Ray on that. I think the biggest thing that the way I want to see it grow is organically. We've tried really hard, and I think we're doing an okay job of listening to our listeners, listening to the audience, and trying to change by listening to them. I mean, we adjusted a little bit of the way that we do things around episode 51, 52, something like that, Ray, and that was based on a lot of feedback that we got about. Honestly, it was about sort of the banter that Ray and I had. So we started doing those intros and talking about something beforehand. And so as we kind of like continue go, it's going to be listening and talking with the audience and people who are fans of the show, giving us feedback on what they like, what they don't like, so that we can kind of adjust things that way. You've probably noticed that we've started releasing a few additional episodes here and there, with some audio blogs now coming out on the podcast, and then some additional bonus episodes. We're going to keep doing that. I would love, and Ray's going to, I'm sure, cringe. I would love to increase the number of episodes that we release every week. I would love to get that to 3 or 4. I don't know if that's in the cards between now and 200, but we'd get to 200 a lot faster if we did that. But we have such, like Ray said, there's so many educators out there that we haven't had on yet. That like there's no fear of us running out of amazing educators. Exactly. There are so many out there, and we're trying to find them in any way we can, not just via big social media followings. We were actually out at I don't want to say the conference because I'm not speaking poorly about it, but it was a smaller conference that we didn't have a great response. It wasn't, the rooms weren't super packed or anything like that. It was a nice little conference and good people there and stuff. But one of the things that did come out of it is I had a session where I talked about teacherpreneurship and stuff. And I had 2 gentlemen in there who actually were in the room thinking of it was a different session than what it was. Okay. But at the end, we end up talking about things, and they're both coming on the podcast.
Fantastic.
And neither one of them is on Twitter or Instagram. And so we talked about how did that conference go? Was it beneficial? We're like, yeah. Like I said, what the cool thing was, we have 2 teachers that are coming on who we would have never found had we not made the trip out to that conference, and who probably would have never found us for the podcast. And now we have an opportunity to get their voice out there and let them share their story where we wouldn't have had that. So it's a lot of this trying to find people. Like I said, it's not just about the rock stars, quote unquote. It's trying to get as many voices as we can from as many different areas around the world, as many different subjects and many different grade levels, different positions, unique situations, everything like that we can to share a story so we can all grow together. So that's my hope.
Hey Jeff.
What's up?
Can I do a little challenge for our listeners right now?
Oh, let's hear it.
All right. If you're listening right now, I want you to think of and I know it's going to be hard to pick one educator that you always go to for support, like someone down the hall, maybe an administrator, maybe it's somebody that you follow on a social media platform or someone who works at a different school. And I want to know their name. Send it to me or Jeff. Ooh. Those would be the perfect teachers to be sharing on this podcast. It's so easy. We do it all, internet based. Jeff and I are in different states. It's super easy to log on, and we ask you questions just about you. Anybody can talk about themselves. So I want to know who those are, and I want to have them in the next 200 episodes.
Well, Jeff and Ray, that's a great note to end on. That really illustrates the mission and the heart of the podcast. You two have been such a huge inspiration to literally thousands of educators already. And I know your impact is only going to continue to grow in the episodes to come. I count myself as a fan, a loyal listener, and an educator whose practice has been inspired by your content.
Well, Tim, thank you for coming on and doing this for us and taking some time out and leading us for this 100th episode. We really appreciate it. We couldn't think of anyone better to come do it, and we appreciate you for that.
Yeah, we love Teachers on Fire.
Thanks, guys, it's been quite a privilege to be your host today, and it's been a lot of fun. So thank you so much.
You want to take us out, Tim?
Until next time, let's get out there and let's teach better.